Hey guys, welcome back to the Nashi Studio. So today we're going to run through a really basic strength and movement session that's designed to get the whole body working with no equipment in a short amount of time. So let's get straight into it. We're going to start just by opening up the hips a little bit. Now, as always, this is kind of more of a, self-assessment, but also a way just to see how the hips feel and get a little bit of better movement happening. So we're going to start in this 90-90 position. So if you think both hip bones are facing forward or they're square facing the front, we have the front leg directly out in front of us, and the knee here is at 90, so the thigh and shin are at 90. Then the back leg is directly out to the side of my body, again with that thigh and shin at 90. From there, I'm going to think about sticking my butt out, going into an anterior pelvic tilt as I come forward. So I don't necessarily want to be rounding like this. I want to keep that chest somewhat lifted and then move from the hips to get a nice stretch here in my glutes. At the same time, if I'm a little bit on the tighter side, my body's going to want to go out over towards that knee. What I'm going to do is bring the center of my chest more in the line with the middle of my shin. And from here, again, chest lifted, sticking the butt out and slowly sinking down. Some of you might be more up here, that's cool. Otherwise, we might be able to get down here. But wherever it is, you're just going to gently settle into the stretch. You don't need to force it. We'll be coming back here in a moment anyway. So just allow the body to soften a little bit so you get the most out of the stretch. We'll come back up. From here, we're going to go into internal rotation of this back hip. So I'm going to lead with the hip. This back leg here, this back hip, I'm going to push back behind me. As I do that, my torso is going to follow, and I'm going to try and face my chest towards this back leg. Notice though I'm sitting nice and tall and upright. If we're on the tighter side, we might be leaning back. That's okay, as long as the intention is to come towards that back leg. And we're just going to hang out here. Now, depending on how mobile you are, you might feel a lot or you might feel nothing at all. There might be a bit of a block kind of sensation here. There might be a stretching through the back here. It's different for different people. Whatever it is, that's okay. Don't force anything too hard and just try and soften your breath. Good, we'll turn back to the front and hit this forward position again, sticking the butt out, letting the hips roll. And you'll notice you'll probably be able to come down a little bit lower. Now, if you want to bias a little bit of strength, you can get light on the hands. You can even hold your hands off, and that way your glutes have to hold you in place a little bit more. Alternatively, you can be a bit more passive, have the hands on the floor for support and just kind of melt into the position. Here, this second time, we can allow the upper back to round as long as you've begun by tilting the hips. As long as we have initiated from there, then I'm okay to round the upper back. We'll come back up and go into internal rotation on the back side. Boom, pushing the hip back, torso follows, and just soft breath. Noticing second time around, you can probably sink a little bit deeper. And again, just letting the breath kind of dictate the intensity there. If you find you're pushing really hard, you'll probably notice that you're almost holding your breath kind of thing. We don't want to be at that intensity. This is just the prep work, the warm up. So make it feel good. All right, let's do the exact same thing on the other side. So if my hips are square, we have the front leg directly out in front, shin and thigh at 90, back leg out to the side, thigh and shin at 90. Then let's roll forward from the hips. Chest stays lifted initially. And because this is the first time going in on this side, you might notice you're a little bit tighter. So again, don't force the range too much. When you naturally get into that point of where the tension starts to become really noticeable, that's where we're going to stay. It might even be like a 6 out of 10 or less. And that's okay, because we'll hit this position once again. All right, from here coming up, we're going to do the same thing now, pushing this back hip back behind us, letting the rest of the upper body follow to try and get that chest to face the back shin. You can see this side for me, I'm a little bit tighter, so I can't get as much range. Even I have to lean back more so than the other side because this internal rotation on my left side is not that great. So this is all I'm getting, but that's cool. Let's turn back to the front, roll the hips forward again. As we do, maybe we can go a little bit deeper this time. And it should come naturally. You shouldn't have to force that depth. Naturally, your body will have hopefully yielded a little bit and given you a little bit more range. From there, we'll come up. We'll turn to face the back again, leading with the hip, torso follows with a soft breath. Awesome work, let that go. Alrighty, from here we'll get into the upper body a little bit, and I always like to start just by moving the spine. I mean, just by doing some cat-cows and some thread the needles, we're going to get a little bit of movement, not only through the spine, but also the scapula, and that's never a bad thing, especially if we've been spending a lot of time sitting. So to set this up, I'm just going to have the hands directly underneath the shoulders, the fingers nice and spread, and then from here, all we're going to do is simply allow the back to arch, looking up. We go into anterior pelvic tilt with the hips as well. Then we tuck the chin, round the upper back, tuck the tailbone, and reverse the movement. Now, as a beginner, we can just alternate between these two if we've never done this before. Just becoming familiar with these two positions, this flexion and extension of the spine. Moving through, of course, slowly, and not forcing either position terribly, just moving in and out, keeping it quite soft. Of course, we can apply some tension in terms of pushing the floor away and, perhaps an inadvertent contraction of our upper back muscles as we go into extension, but I prefer to keep things soft. Now, if this is pretty straightforward or you've done this before, what I'd like you to play around with now is thinking about moving vertebrae by vertebrae. So what I mean by that is, say I'm in full extension here, I'm looking up, my tailbone is up to the sky as well, my upper back is arched and my mid back as well. I'm going to start by tucking my chin, rounding through the upper back, and then I'm going to continue vertebrae by vertebrae, slowly flexing my spine or rounding, continuing to push the floor away, working down my mid back, low back, to finally then the tailbone or the hips, which I tuck. And I can do the same thing in reverse. I can start at the tailbone, going into anterior pelvic tilt, but keeping the upper back rounded. Then vertebrae by vertebrae, working my way up the spine, slowly going into more and more extension through the mid back. Finally, in between the shoulder blades, and all the way up to my neck to look up. And then make my way back down. Now, for the best spine articulation or vertebrae articulation, I want you to go slow. If you go fast, this is very, very hard to get that level of control to move, each individual segment of the spine. So the slower you go, the better chance you have. And again, not forcing anything, you can keep this quite soft. And if that feels okay, you can start to turn that into waves, perhaps. And if any of these variations are too hard, just go back to the one that you felt the most comfortable and confident with. Otherwise, then we can also turn that into sexy cat-cows, where then we take the head or the hips to one side, continue with the cat-cow, and then moving the head and hips to the other side. Still going through that flexion and extension of the spine. And it kind of ends up being this spiral, and you can go either which way. Doesn't matter, you can start at the top and work your way down, shifting to the left, shifting to the right. There's no right or wrong. It's simply just adding a little bit of side flexion into the movement as well now. So it's not just flexion and extension. We've got that lateral bend moving through the spine too. Cool, and let that go. Now there's one movement we haven't addressed, and that is rotation. So we're going to do that with a thread the needle. Very, very simple. You're going to stay on all fours, and all we're going to do is take one hand in between the opposite hand and knee, reach across. I'm going to let this shoulder drop to the floor as best I can. I can even relax my head on the floor if I want. Now I can use this supporting hand here to press into the floor, as well as the bottom hand to press into the floor, to try and stack my shoulders on top of one another. Just for a moment, getting an intense stretch, letting that go, coming up, and then switching side. So I can reach, relax, and then try to press the floor away to stack the shoulders, intensifying the stretch for a moment, backing off, and then in your own time, just working side to side, keeping the breath soft, not pausing terribly long in either position, but just getting a little bit of gentle rotation. And the further you push the hips back, over the heels, the more this rotation will come from the upper back exclusively and less in the low back. So if you are getting a bit of tension or discomfort through the low back, just push the heels a little, the hips, sorry, a little bit further back, just like you would in a child's pose. Alrighty, and let that go. Alright, so we've loosened up the hips a little bit, we've loosened up the upper back a little bit, subsequently the spine, so hopefully things should already be moving or feeling a little bit free, a little bit looser. We're going to get straight into some basic strength work with a split squat and then some rotator cuff work. So specifically the stuff in, the back of half of you on the upper back, the stuff responsible for stabilizing your limbs as you move through, a push or pull, for example, but a really great one to do, not only for the periscapular musculature, but just it's a body weight exercise that's super accessible. It's these small things that we usually don't get a chance to work on, but when there's no equipment, it's easy to do. So with the split squat, we're going to simply start one foot in front of the other. Now, what I will say is this, I'd like to always think feet under the hips. This is where I'm going to be most stable. All I have to do is take one leg back. I don't have to be on this tight rope here. So I'm going to take one leg back. The front leg is going to be straight. That allows me to hinge at the hips a little bit easier. I'm on the balls of the feet for the back leg. And from here, hand position is up to you. You can have them by your side, pretending you're holding dumbbells, or even holding what's accessible, or you could have your hands on your chest. I really don't mind. But what I do care about is the tempo. So we're going to come down for the count of 3, 2, 1. If the knee can touch the ground, that's just your marker to be able to come up. If you can't touch the ground, that's fine. Go to the lowest range you can. But we're going to come down for the count of 3, 2, 1, before coming back up. Now notice when I'm at the top, I've got this thigh locked out. So there's a difference between locked out and relaxed, and locked out and my quads squeezed. So I want that contraction in my quads, just so that I know that I'm working, right? There's tension here. So I can put tension into the quads straight away as I bend the knee to initiate the movement, and constantly as I come down, as opposed to being locked out and then the quads coming on, right? Now what we're going to do is hit 3 seconds down for 6 reps on both sides. So when you're ready, let's get into it. Doesn't matter which leg you want to start with first, because we'll be doing both anyway. So stepping back into your split squat stance, front leg straight, back leg straight. We're going to tilt forward from the hips a little bit, keeping this position the whole time. And let's slowly come down for 3, 2, 1. Up. And 3, 2, 2. Up. And 3, 2, 3. Up. And 3, 2, 4, up, and 3, 2, 5, up, and 3, 2, 6, up, and let's swap sides. Same thing, taking our time. Front leg straight, back leg straight as well. We're tilted from the hips a little bit. All this does is allow us to get a little bit deeper into the glutes, so it spreads the load between the glutes and the quads. From here, hands ready, let's hit it. And 3, 2, 1, up, and 3, 2, 2, up, and 3, 2, 3, up, and 3, 2, 4, up, and 3, 2, 5, up, and 3, 2, 6, up. Cool. Okay, so that takes care of the legs. Now we're going to come back to that, and hopefully you're going to do another set or 2 after this as well. So from here we're going to start working on, like I mentioned, the rotator cuffs. So we're going to hit 3 positions with your arms. I'm going to show you front on so you can see it better, and then we'll go through the movement. But essentially you're going to do an L, which is this rotation here. The elbow is going to stay in the shape of an L, as the name suggests, but at 90 degrees. And we're just going to turn, like so. Then your second one will be with arms straight, thumbs facing up, going into a Y. So you can see my hands are kind of making a Y shape or maybe a V. And the last one will be the hands going directly out to the side in a T. Now we're going to use gravity a little bit to help build some resistance that we can actually work against. And to do that, all we have to do is hinge at the hips. So I'm going to push my hips back. Now, the more flexible you are, the more mobile you are from your hamstrings and your hips here, you'll be able to get closer and closer to your torso being parallel with the floor. That's great. If you can't and you're more up here, that's okay. Work with what you've got. But so we're hitting these 3 positions. Let's start by hinging at the hips. And with your arms dangling in front of you, your chest lifted so your back is straight, what I want you to do is flare your elbows out to the side, but keep your palms or your fingertips facing towards the floor. Now, once you have your elbows directly out to the side of you, make a fist. And then all we're going to do is our L. So we're going to pull or rotate our palms to face the floor and then come back down to the starting position. Rotate to come up. Having a little squeeze to see, can I get any more range? And then back down. We're going to do 5 of these. So with me, let's go up for 1, squeeze and down. Up for 2, squeeze and down. Up for 3, squeeze and down. Up 4, hold and down. Last one, up, hold, down for 5. Okay, now let those arms dangle again. Make a fist, thumbs out so they're facing one another. Then we're going to actually turn those thumbs to face away from one another. From here, the shoulders are away from the ears. Think about sliding your scaps or your scapular shoulder blades into the back pocket. Then we're going to try and keep them there as we slowly lift those thumbs up to the sky with our arms in the shape of a Y or V. We're going to pause at the top and back down. Let's hit it again. Up, 1, and up, 2, and up, 3, and up, 4, and up, 5. Last one. The only difference here is keep the thumbs where they are. We're going to take the hands directly out to the side. Keep the arms straight, and let's go. Out, pause, down, up, pause, down, up, for 3, down, up, 4, and up, 5, and down. Cool. So that's your little superset that you're going to do. You've got your split squats, 6 on each side with a 3 seconds on the way down. Then you've got your L's, your Y's, and your T's. Back to back, 5 reps each. Now you can do this 1 more time or 2 more times to make it a total of 2 or 3 sets. Totally up to you. Once you've done that, come on back and let's move into the next exercise. So from here, we're going to go into more of a hinge pattern now. We've done our kind of squats. It's time to get a little bit more targeted on the glutes and the hips. And also we're going to open them up a little bit because we haven't got that much weight. So I'd like to bias this in terms of a bit of a mobility exercise. So rather than just moving through the hips, we're going to try and actually create some space there too and make you feel a little bit better. So what I'd like to see is this. We're going to go into what's called a B stance or a staggered stance. And if I show you from the side, all that is taking one foot back and going on the balls of the feet. Now, in terms of where you place this foot, totally up to you. You can just have a kind of toe in line with heel. You can have it a little bit more out to the side, a little bit further back. You've got a bit of room here to play with, whatever feels most comfortable for you. Then if I show you from this side, all we're going to be hitting is a deadlift or a hinge pattern. So I'm going to allow my hips to roll. I'm going to think about sticking my butt out as low as I comfortably can, as long as the movement is just coming from the hips, right? So what I mean by that is I'm not doing this with my back. It's exclusively hip. So if you think about the hip here, this is the top of my hip, and I'm literally just, boom, letting the hips roll as I come down. You might feel a bit of a stretch through the hamstring. You might feel a little bit in the glutes. Now, we're going to add one more movement onto this, and that is once we've done our hinge, we're actually then going to take the opposite to the front leg, that hand, and we're going to reach across to the outside of the foot. What this is going to do is bias this hip to go into internal rotation, and what that means is you're going to feel a really nice stretch, hopefully, deep in this hip, kind of right in the glute, in this meaty part back here. So we'd hinge, taking the hand across and not necessarily touching the floor, but just having that intention to reach across. What we can also do is with this back leg here, if I show you from this angle, as I come down and across, look at this hip here, I can actually allow that to sink a little bit as well to get even more roll from the hips. That's an option that you can play with. But we're just going to hit 6 on each side. So let's give this a go. Doesn't matter which side you start with first because we're going to do both. But front foot flat, back foot on the toe. Again, you've got that room to play with. And let's hinge down. Reach across for 1. Coming all the way back up. I want you to stand tall. We'll come down again, reach across for 2. And down, reach across for 3. Up and down, reach across. 4. Last 2. And down, reach across. 5. And last 1. Down, reach across. And 6. Nice. Let's do the same thing on the other side, switching up. So front foot, boom, it's now switched. Front foot flat, back foot on the balls of the feet. And when you're ready, let's hit it. Hinge, reach, and back up. Hinge, reach, and up for 2. Hinge, reach, and up for 3. Hinge, reach, 4, hinge, reach, 5, hinge, reach, and 6. Awesome. From here, let's come on down. So we're going to go into a bit of a push now. We did a little bit of pull in the previous superset with all that rotator cuff work and kind of rear delt work. So now we're going to do a little bit of push. Serratus anterior, a little bit of chest and shoulders. So we're going to do a scapular push-up. Very, very simple. You've got a couple of options depending on your strength, depending on how well you can isolate this. You can go either knees or toes. So first things first, I want the hands to be underneath the shoulders, just like with those cat-cows. The fingers are going to be spread, index fingers facing forward. And then I'm going to walk the knees back behind me so that I can then tuck the pelvis under and drop the hips down. Now in this position with the hips down, you can see my torso is kind of slanted towards the floor a little bit, as well as the shoulder and wrist are in one straight line. Now, from here, the movement would simply be to keep the arms straight and gently let the chest come down towards the floor. Once I've hit the maximum range, I'm then going to press the floor away, spreading the shoulder blades apart. Simply alternating down and up, letting the shoulder blades come together as I lower, and then pressing the floor away, rounding the upper back. And now you'll notice the arms are staying straight the whole time. It's not wrong to bend the elbows, but that just means that I'm going to get a little bit movement from the elbows and a little bit less movement from the scaps. And I want as much movement from the shoulder blades as possible. So I'm very gently going to go down and up. Now you have the option to then also go on the toes and do the exact same thing. But just note that if you start to bend the elbows, or if you start shaking, or you simply can't maintain the posterior pelvic tilt and you look like this, it's probably better just to drop to the knees, tuck, get yourself set, and build some strength here. So with me, we're going to hit 10 scapular push-ups. So let's go, dropping the chest, down, then come up, spread the shoulder blades apart. That's 1. Let's go down, up, 2, down, keep the arms straight, up, 3, down, and up, 4, down and up, 5, down and up, 6, down and up, 7, make sure those abs are still tucked, or the hips are tucked and abs are on, down and up, 8, down, arms straight, up, 9, down, last 1, up, 10. All right, cool. And that is the next superset that I want you to do, which just means we do the B-stance RDL and the scapular push-up together in unison before coming back and having a rest. Again, you can do this just like in the last superset, 1 more time each exercise, or 2 more times, making a total of 2 or 3 sets. Now, finally, we're going to finish on some abs. Very simple. We're going to hold 2 static positions. One is the hollow body and one is a side plank. And I'll leave you to your own devices with that. So the first one, the hollow body. Let's set this one up. We're going to be on our backs. And first thing I want you to do is gently flatten your back onto the floor. Now you don't have to go maximum, so much so that the hips kind of come off the floor, just enough so that the lower back is flat. Then from here, the knees can come up off the floor, knees and feet together, toes pointed, with the knees and the feet in the same line. Then I'm going to think about taking my ribs here, the bottom of them, and crunching them towards the hip bone here. So what that looks like is I'm trying to close this space here between the hip and the bottom of the rib. It looks like this. So I crunch up. There, my shoulder blades come off the floor. I can then reach my hands with the palms up towards the feet. Now, if you're getting a lot in your neck, I want you to think about tucking the chin a little bit and giving yourself a bit of a double chin. From here, you have the option to extend out. To make it harder, I'll bring it back in. I want you to experiment with a position that you can maintain for 30 seconds. So let's get a timer out and we're going to do 30 seconds. So again, tucking the tailbone, knees come up, knees and feet together, crunching ribs towards hips, and time starts now. Now this entire time, I want you to think, can I get the ribs and hips a little bit closer together? Can I tuck the tailbone a little bit more? Try to keep the breath calm. You can also squeeze the knees together. That way we get the inner thighs working a little bit. So think someone's coming in to kind of pull the knees apart. Keep squeezing them together. And that's time, let that go. Cool. And that is your hollow body. Now, if any time you notice the lower back in that, chances are you've lost that posterior pelvic tilt, and it's just a sign that you need to stop, have a rest, and then come back to it in a moment. Cool. Your option is now to continue with a side plank, or you can just leave it with the hollow body and practice that if that's already enough. So the side plank, we're going to keep very, very basic. We're going to be on our elbows initially. And we're going to set ourselves up so both legs are straight. With the hips lifted, trying to maintain a straight line from the shoulder all the way down to the hip. So what I mean by that is you're not leaning forward or you're not leaning back. Now, this elbow, I want it to be directly underneath the shoulder, so I have the best chance to push the floor away. Cool, we're just going to again do a static hold here. This time, because we're going to be doing both sides, I just want you to start with 15 seconds. If that's easy, we can always make it harder and increase that time. So, for example, let's get up the hips off the floor. Legs are straight. I'm going to tuck my hips a little bit, push the hips forward so that I straighten my body, and time starts now. Again, not letting the shoulder collapse, we're pressing the floor away. Hips stay nice and high. Hand on the hip. You've got 5 more seconds to make it to 15. 2, 1, and time. And now, obviously, we would go and do that on the other side. Right, now it's 15 seconds. Now, if you find yourself, the hips are dropping to the floor, again, just really try and focus on lifting that up. You also have the option, if say you just simply can't get this position, you can actually do it with the knees bent. This does the exact same thing, it just reduces the intensity a little bit. So if that means that you can hold yourself up a little bit longer with greater form and less struggle, then I would highly recommend that. But guys, that is it for your full body, very basic strength and movement session. So with this ab workout, the end piece, you can add another set or 2, just like the other ones in, to make it a total of 2 or 3 sets as needed. But you know, we've been here for the better part of 20 minutes, so as you can see, it doesn't take that long to get the workout. Give this a go and watch yourself get stronger. I'll see you in the next video.